CH is true, and it's been a bit of a whirlwind. I've just did a huge series plus a postscript on Stefan Molyneux. I got into a rant on STEM education versus liberal arts and how, although I support one, I also support both. I got into something on anarchism, left forms, traditional left anarchism versus the new right-wing anarcho-capitalism. I got into something on finance and the Federal Reserve and ideas around that. And then I got into a postscript where I kind of recycled it all. But there was one point I made in the postscript, which is I don't want to make this a beat up on Stefan Molyneux or to take his name and turn it around and make it a bait for people to hit on my videos. I want to treat what he says with respect. I've been very critical. But I also want to give credit where credit is due. And I want to give credit as far as his perspective on Apple versus the FBI. I looked at his video on that and I thumbed it up and encourage you to do the same thing. Whether you agree with his views on what I call market idolatry or whether you agree with his automatic equation of libertarianism with market ideology or libertarianism with the modern day concept of libertarian capitalism. Whether you agree with that or not, I do think that he's right. I defend Apple in this context. Yes, I know that Apple is a huge multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar corporation, whatever the case may be, that has outsourced jobs. I know that it has royally abused American workers. I know that Apple is part of something I've been very critical of, which is the kind of transhumanist, elitist meme where if you don't fit their image of the sort of corporate, cool guy, cool person, techie type person, then you're of inherently less worth. I can understand people being resentful about that. And I can understand, frankly, I can understand in this election we have various forms of populism that are resurgent. From the left, we have Bernie Sanders, and he certainly won't defend Apple because he's not into defending huge corporations. And from the right, we have the Donald, who I guess never met a bullying populist, pseudo-populist kind of opinion. He didn't trumpet or triumph, but the fact of the matter is no one's really going to defend Apple. They don't have a lot of good press and PR. Even other tech companies don't seem to defend Apple. And, well, whatever the merits of Apple, I think one of the reasons people don't want to defend them is that they don't really employ people all that much in the United States. They don't. All of their assembly, as I understand, is overseas. So I could be wrong about that, but that's at least the perception. Even if I am wrong about that, that is the perception. But here's the situation. This is not about Apple. See, this is how they trick you. They try to say, do you like or defend Edward Snowden? Don't you know that Edward Snowden did this? Don't you know that Edward Snowden has this connection? Don't you know Edward Snowden went to Russia and he's not a real patriot because he went to Russia? But it's not about Edward Snowden. It's not about him. It's about what business does the NSA have circumventing the Fourth Amendment. That is the issue. It is not about personality. Just like the issue with Apple, it's not about Apple, and it's not about Stefan Molyneux. And it's not about whether you like Donald Trump or not. Donald Trump, I think, is picking on Apple because he couldn't answer a question about how he was going to get jobs back into the country. But it's not about him. It's not about his hairstyle versus Stefan Molyneux's hairstyle, though that'd be an interesting contest. Notice I wear a cap, so I don't have any business opening my mouth about that. It's not about Tim Cook versus whoever, the FBI. It's not about that. It's a very simple issue here. Do you want a backdoor to your encryption? Do you want a backdoor to your Fourth Amendment? Do you want a backdoor to your Ninth Amendment, which is that there are rights that are frankly not stated, that are otherwise retained by the people? This is an old concept in American constitutionalism? Is this something that you want? Because once an exception is made in this instance of the San Bernardino shooting, once an exception is made, then the exceptions will just keep on coming, and they'll keep on coming, and they'll keep on coming. They won't stop. It'll be like the Patriot Act. It'll be like other forms of wiretapping. It won't stop. Once the cry of emergency is raised, everything's an emergency. You notice how on the news there's an alert. Okay? Everything is an alert. Everything is about fear. I will give Stefan Molyneux credit for being right. Apple Computer is, in this context, on the right side. They're on the right side of everything, I understand that, but they're on the right side, at least as far as what's being presented. It's possible it's all theater, and maybe there really is already a backdoor, and Apple's just doing this for show. I don't know, but if it is, as I perceive it, they are correct in this context. Now, I know what you're saying. You're saying, CH is true. You're always talking about corporate this and how corporations that and the workers and the people. Sure, okay, fine. I understand that. I talk about that a lot. But the fact of the matter is if you look at the history of the expansion of constitutionalism in this country, the United States, where I'm broadcasting this, you find something very interesting. The expansion of rights was not run by saints. It was not won by, it was not won by saints. The expansion of our concept of freedom was not necessarily won by popular majorities or organizations that people like. I mean, if you look at the actual expansion of our constitutional rights in terms of court cases, they've been war protesters, back in a time when it was not popular to be that, World War I. It was suspected communists in the 50s. It was sometimes suspected Klansmen who were rightly not popular, understandably. It was people busted for crimes. I think the Miranda decision, Miranda was a criminal defendant. At various stages along the way, you have had people that right-thinking majorities probably in a lot of cases genuinely would not consider very likable. And yet, it was the understanding that the precedents that apply to them apply to anybody. The precedent that applies to your least favorite corporation, I'm talking to people who might be on the progressive or let's say populist anti-corporate end of things, the least likable corporation you could think of, whatever it would be. Let's say it's Rockefeller Bank, or let's say it's Elitist Incorporated, whatever it is. But the precedent that applies to them, that you might say, hurrah, they're finally getting what's theirs, will ultimately apply to you at some point. Especially those of you who might be inventors out there. Some of you, I know, watch my channel. I have a strong suspicion that a lot of you liked my math and science videos from a while back and maybe still stick around. Imagine you invent something and then you are forced to find a back door to something or do something to your invention. Remember, there's a court order, and the court order says you can enter your invention, but then you've already sold it. It's not yours. It's not your invention. It's theirs. It belongs to the criminal defendant or to the suspect, whatever it might be. So you're now being ordered, and you had nothing to do with the crime. So you're not a party to the events. Yes, I understand that a lot of people are upset with Apple and various tech corporations for a lot of reasons. A lot of them might be genuine, but this is not one of them. This is an instant where your rights, because remember, this is not about Islamic terrorism. I don't think, well, I'm not going to get down the conspiratorial lane here, but I think the real thing that government wants has less to do with them, because they're not that hard to monitor, and more to do with us. And I think we should be very concerned. So yes, I will defend Apple, Stefan Molyneux, and Tim Cook in this context. And if you don't like it, unsubscribe. A lot of you do anyway.